Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. In a stunning turn of events at the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, as covered by Inner City Press, an unexpected figure entered the courtroom and shifted the entire atmosphere. The proceedings had already featured testimony from prominent names like Cassie, Will Smith, Monique, and others, but no one anticipated the arrival of Ice Cube. Known for his unyielding resolve, the rapper-turned-actor stepped into the courtroom, confronting a system he had long navigated cautiously. This time, he walked directly into its core. Ice Cube wasn't there for publicity or attention. He came to deliver testimony, armed with documents, audio recordings, names, and connections that brought the room to a standstill. His presence transformed the case from one centered solely on Diddy to a broader expose of an industry built on hidden networks of power, manipulation, and exploitation, allegedly propped up by figures the public has long idolized. Names like Jamie Foxx, Oprah Winfrey, and Quincy Jones surfaced in connection to these claims, and Ice Cube stood as their witness. What began as a routine day in court, reporters sifting through notes, cameras humming outside, Diddy's legal team projecting confidence, changed the moment Ice Cube walked in. He carried a single manila folder, his gaze unwavering, moving with the purpose of someone who had waited years for this moment. The courtroom stirred. Jurors straightened in their seats, the judge leaned back, and even Diddy, initially avoiding eye contact, paled when he finally met Cube's stare. "I wasn't summoned," Ice Cube declared, his voice calm but resolute. "I chose to come forward." The judge acknowledged him with a nod. His words carried the weight of decades in hip-hop, unpolished yet deliberate, as if they had been bottled up for years. He began, "Some of you didn't realize I never joined their circle, and that's what made them angry." Silence gripped the courtroom. Ice Cube spoke not as a celebrity or performer, but as a survivor of an industry machine, exposing its inner workings. He described an exclusive club that operates in the shadows, gatekeepers who control the industry not through talent or merit, but through coercion and compliance. "They don't bring you in because they admire you," he said, his eyes briefly meeting Diddy's, who appeared rattled. "They bring you in to own you. And when you refuse, that's when the trouble begins. The rumors, the canceled deals, the smear campaigns, the calls that never come." The courtroom was captivated, every word from Ice Cube carrying the weight of revelation. He described a pattern he'd witnessed repeatedly. Talented artists, full of promise, lured with offers of fame and fortune, only to be pressured into submission. "They dangle the dream in front of you," Cube said, his voice steady. "But there's always a catch. Sign their contract, play their game, or they make sure your career stalls." He didn't hesitate to point the finger at Diddy, alleging he wasn't just a member of this elite circle, but a key orchestrator. When the judge offered him a moment to pause, Cube declined with a shake of his head. Turning to the jury, he asked, "You want to know why I'm here? They tried to destroy someone I respect. Jamie Foxx." The room froze. Reporters' pens halted and every gaze locked onto Cube. He explained how it began, as it always does, with false camaraderie. Invitations to exclusive events, personal calls from untouchable industry titans, and promises of opportunity. Jamie, with his undeniable charisma and talent, was a rising star, and that's when the circle closed in. "It starts with praise," Cube said. "Then they ask for favors, and soon it's about control." Cube recounted how Jamie had confided in him, speaking cautiously, his voice tinged with fear. "They pull you in like your family," Cube told the jury. "If you comply, you're a genius. If you resist..." He let the silence speak for itself. He described Diddy's notorious basketball parties, where phones were banned, black SUVs lined the streets, and the guest list raised questions. "It wasn't about the game," Cube said. "It was about loyalty. Who you'd follow, who you'd challenge, who you'd shield." Jamie, he explained, played it smart, staying polite, keeping his distance, but never fully surrendered. That's when the backlash began. Suddenly, Jamie was labeled difficult. Whispers about his health surfaced. His name faded from major headlines, relegated to gossip blogs. Cube's testimony took a darker turn as he addressed Jamie's 2023 medical emergency. "That wasn't random," he said, his tone grave. "It was a message disguised as a health scare." He alleged that Diddy's network didn't just host parties, they maintained archives, hidden cameras, recorded moments, private interactions captured without consent. "Once they have that footage," Cube said, "they own you." He recalled a late-night call from Jamie after one of Diddy's events. Jamie didn't share specifics, but his words stuck with Cube. "I can't talk about it, but I can't forget what I saw." The courtroom, already reeling, was stunned further when Cube named another figure, Oprah Winfrey. "It's not just Diddy," he said. "This goes deeper." He recounted a moment during Jamie's ascent, just after Ray and before the Oscar buzz, when Jamie received an unexpected call from Oprah. Expecting praise, he was blindsided. "She told him he was messing up," Cube said, unflinching. Oprah's message was clear. Jamie needed to fix himself. She offered to connect him with someone who could guide him. Quincy Jones. Cube didn't need to elaborate on Quincy's reputation. The industry icon was a legend in public, but, according to Cube, a formidable figure behind closed doors. Oprah arranged for Jamie to visit Quincy's home, a meeting that Cube implied carried weight beyond a simple introduction. Ice Cube described the meeting at Quincy Jones's house as anything but supportive. It was framed as an intervention, he told the jury, but it wasn't about healing. It was about compliance. According to Cube, Jamie Foxx later confided that the night felt surreal, like he was being molded rather than mentored. Jamie never fully disclosed what transpired, but Cube said the haunted look in his eyes spoke volumes. "That was enough to know," Cube added. Leaning forward, Cube recounted how Oprah had framed the meeting as a lesson in responsibility, while Quincy called it preserving a legacy. But Cube saw it differently. They were handing him a leash. After that night, Jamie changed, not by choice, but by necessity. Cube recalled Jamie's words. "Cube, sometimes you survive this game by playing along. I watched him play that role for years." Cube paused, his gaze sweeping the courtroom. But now the masks are off. Without hesitation, Cube turned his focus to Quincy Jones. "He's not just a producer," he said deliberately. "In this town, he's a godfather." The courtroom was still, not a sound breaking the tension. Cube addressed the judge with measured respect. "This isn't rumor, it's truth, and it belongs on the record." He explained that for decades, Quincy's name carried a dual reputation, celebrated in public, dreaded in private. The source of that fear, Cube hinted, was only alluded to in cryptic lyrics and guarded interviews. "You don't rise to Quincy's level without making deals," he said. "Not contracts, soul trades, arrangements that bind you." Cube alleged that Jamie's meeting with Quincy, facilitated by Oprah, was no coincidence. It was a deliberate transfer from one overseer to another. "Jamie told me later," Cube said, "it wasn't guidance, it was orders." Quincy had presented himself as a mentor, but Jamie sensed he was being processed, not supported. Cube told the jury he'd heard similar accounts from other men in the industry. Artists who faded from prominence, reinvented themselves overnight, or suffered silent breakdowns, never to recover. Quincy's approach was polished charm, but the message echoed Diddy's, "Comply, or your career ends." Then Cube's testimony grew darker. He spoke of private photos, circulated discreetly over the years, images that shouldn't exist. In these photos, Quincy was often present, smiling in the background, while the subjects looked uneasy. "I can't verify every detail," Cube admitted, "but I know this. Quincy isn't just a guide, he's a go-between, answering to people whose names we still don't know." Standing resolute, Cube shifted to the tactics used to silence dissent. "It's not just fear," he said, "it's blackmail." He claimed Diddy's influence stemmed not only from wealth, but from what he held. Recordings, tapes, secrets amassed over years from parties, studios, private jets, and hotel suites, all meticulously cataloged. "They don't just invite you to their events," Cube said, locking eyes with the prosecution. "They film you." He challenged them to consider how many stayed silent, coerced by mysterious flash drives, mailed without return addresses, or anonymous calls playing audio of moments people couldn't recall. How many careers vanished after someone said no? He asked. Cube revealed he knew of at least 2 actors, besides Jamie, ensnared at Diddy's events. One called him in a panic, unable to remember anything past midnight, only to wake in a hotel room with a contract on the table and unfamiliar photos on his phone. Once they have you, Cube said, you're not free. You belong to them. That's why so many play along, posing for photos, laughing on talk shows, walking red carpets as if nothing's wrong. The alternative is the release of their archive. Cube emphasized that Diddy rarely issued threats himself. His network, publicists, reporters, executives, even stylists handled the dirty work, ensuring his hands stayed clean. Ice Cube explained that resistance came at a steep cost. When you try to break free, he told the jury, the machine turns against you. Gossip blogs start churning, old scandals resurface, and suddenly you're labeled unstable, uncooperative, a risk. He pointed to Jamie Foxx's experience as a textbook example. After Jamie began pulling away from the inner circle, whispers spread about his health, his reliability, his sanity. They didn't just attack him, Cube said, they tried to erase his credibility. But he wasn't losing it. He was reclaiming himself. And they hate that. His voice grew quieter, more deliberate as he adjusted the microphone and faced the jury. The courtroom felt heavier, the air thick with the gravity of his words. Cube admitted he'd attended one of their events just once in the early 2000s. It wasn't a public affair, no flyers, no media, just a discreet invitation with a time, a place, and a car waiting outside his hotel. They called it networking, he said. But when he arrived at a sprawling Beverly Hills estate, the gates locking behind him, he realized it was something else entirely. Phones were confiscated at the door. Inside, there was no music, just dim lighting, hushed conversations, and security at every turn. Unmarked doors lined the halls, some ajar, some emitting strange noises. Cube described seeing familiar faces, A-list stars, some disoriented, others visibly shaken. Then he witnessed something unforgettable. A legendary figure in the industry slumped on a couch, eyes vacant, with a camera trained on him. I didn't wait around, Cube said. I walked out, no goodbyes, no questions. The next day, a call came from a blocked number. A voice said only, "We saw you leave." Nothing followed, but Cube never returned. I knew what it was, he said, staring directly at Diddy. Not a party, a setup. He accused Diddy of not just destroying lives, but documenting their downfall first. The judge called for a brief pause as the courtroom reeled. Reporters sat stunned. Diddy's legal team whispered frantically, but Diddy himself remained frozen, eyes fixed ahead, jaw tight. The cameras in the room weren't his this time. The atmosphere felt less like a trial and more like a long overdue reckoning. Even Diddy's attorneys stopped objecting. The impact of Cube's words was undeniable. Cube pressed on, his focus returning to Jamie Foxx. They didn't just try to quiet him, they tried to erase him, he said. In Hollywood, silence isn't requested. It's engineered through calculated moves, canceled projects, whispered rumors, and surgical attacks that make a star's fade seem natural. After Jamie distanced himself from the parties, opportunities vanished. Roles he'd secured disappeared. Gossip painted him as erratic, unreliable, problematic. Cube lingered on that word. Problematic. They love that one. It means you said no. He presented a document, a timeline of Jamie's bookings and meetings from 2019 to 2021. The jury leaned in as Cube pointed to a string of abrupt cancellations, all linked to executives tied to Bad Boy, Revolt TV, or Diddy's extended network. Coincidence? Cube asked. Not a chance. He detailed how Jamie's Netflix deals stalled, scripts he was set to produce hit legal snags, and longtime collaborators went silent. Then came the 2023 health scare. Cube's voice softened, his gaze dropping briefly. You think a man like Jamie in top form just collapses on set? Right after he started speaking out about what he'd seen, Cube didn't make direct accusations, but let the implication hang. "I don't know what happened in that hospital," he said, "but I know fear and I know retribution. That wasn't just a health issue, it was a warning." He claimed Jamie was targeted not only for what he said, but for refusing to be a pawn. "They offered him chances to come back," Cube said, "roles, deals, invitations to rejoin the fold, but Jamie wouldn't play their game." Cube explained that Jamie Foxx was offered a way back, an opportunity to restore his image with glowing press and public redemption. All he had to do was play along, smile for the cameras, and pretend nothing was wrong. But Jamie refused. "That's when they turned on him," Cube said. "They tried to replace him, started rumors about clones, made people question if he was even still alive. That's their tactic. Piece by piece, they dismantle you until even your supporters don't know what's true." His voice lowered, heavy with conviction. "They don't just use fear, they erase you." Addressing the jury, Cube leaned forward, his words commanding attention. "This isn't about music or parties, it's about controlling culture." He scanned the courtroom, locking eyes with the prosecution. "They don't just decide what you hear, they shape what you believe, what you fear, who you become." He described Hollywood's inner circle as a machine, manipulating identity, pain, and defiance, then repackaging it as entertainment for profit. "You think it's all about creativity, freedom? It's a script," he said. "Every album they promote, every film they back, it's calculated." He paused, then delivered a line that reverberated, "The same people pushing prison music own the prisons." Cube attributed this insight to Tupac, who he claimed had tried to expose the industry's true architects before he was silenced for becoming too outspoken, too political. Cube portrayed Diddy not as a lone operator, but as a conduit, a carefully selected figurehead who glamorized a destructive lifestyle. "If you didn't play their game," Cube said, "you got no promotion, no budget, no label backing. Rap about empowerment? Your album's shelved. Speak about healing? You're called soft." Cube alleged that artists with messages challenging the industry faced severe repercussions. Studios raided, hard drives compromised, bank accounts frozen. "They didn't just want you to entertain," he said. "They wanted you compliant." He tied this back to Diddy's parties, describing them as more than lavish gatherings. "Those were audition rooms," he said, "where they tested you on camera. Play along, you're shielded. Step out of line, you're framed or erased." He cited the case of a well-known singer who declined a bad boy contract after attending one of Diddy's events. Within months, she was branded unstable, dropped by her label, and excluded from award shows. "You think that was just her unraveling?" Cube asked. "Number that was punishment." Looking directly at the jury, Cube posed a question that shifted the trial's focus. "You're trying to figure out what Diddy did. But the real question is, how many people helped him do it?" In that moment, the case expanded beyond one man, becoming a reflection of a broader system. When the judge asked if he had closing remarks, Cube nodded. He stepped away from the witness stand, moved to the center of the courtroom, and fixed his gaze on Diddy. "You built an empire on other people's silence," he said, his voice steady and unflinching. "You called it success," Ice Cube said, his voice cutting through the courtroom as he stared at Diddy, who sat pale and motionless. "But it was slavery." Cube accused Diddy of orchestrating more than just parties, building cages, not just physical, but emotional and mental, trapping people who believed they were being celebrated. "You didn't lift them up," he said. "You locked them in." Turning to the gallery, Cube addressed aspiring artists and dreamers watching the trial. "When you chase that dream, ask yourself, who's guarding the gate, who holds the key, and what do they want from you to let you through?" He paused, his expression heavy with years of reflection. "I stayed silent for too long, thinking it kept me safe, but silence doesn't protect you. It makes you complicit." Cube opened the manila folder he'd carried, pulling out a photograph. "This is me, 1991, he said, holding it up for the jury. "Young, full of hope, thinking I could make art and keep my soul intact." He tore the photo in half, the sound sharp in the silent courtroom. "That version of me didn't make it, but the man standing here today, he's not scared of any of you." Returning to the stand, he set the folder down and addressed the judge. "I don't know what you'll do with this, but now it's out there. You all know the truth." His gaze shifted back to Diddy one final time. "You thought you had everyone silenced, that your system was airtight, but now the door's been kicked open." Cube stepped down, walking past the gallery without glancing at the reporters or the jury. Just before exiting, he turned slightly and said, "They didn't destroy Jamie. They didn't destroy me, they just made us louder." With that, he left the courtroom, leaving behind a truth that would resonate far beyond its walls.